Good morning and welcome to episode 47 of Talking to Artists, a weekly chat where artists have the opportunity to hear from other full-time artists about their techniques, their process, their business tips, and it's also a place for art collectors and art lovers to kind of understand a little bit about what goes on behind the curtains in the day of a full-time artist. So a couple of things I wanted to chat about before we bring on Karen. I'm involved in a couple of shows right now. So Rave New York, as many of you may have remembered, I did Rave San Diego about a month ago. Now it's Rave New York, which normally I would potentially be in New York, but obviously are not doing that. That's going to be live streamed starting April the 22nd. So if you go on the link to my bio, you can kind of find out there. They're going to do interviews. They're going to be interviewing artists as well as collectors and talk about how to build an art collection. So there's some really great stuff that's going to be there. And all the pieces are going to be for sale on my website. Then I've got the Square Foot show that is run by Julia Veenstra. I've got 3 of my pieces in that show this year from the series that you can see behind me. And so that is on April 21st. And again, link in my bio. Get there right at 8 o'clock when it opens, because last year everything kind of got scooped up pretty quickly. So we're all hoping that will be the same case this year. And then the third one is I'm also involved in the Art Gallery of Hamilton show as well, which is also running on the 22nd. So if you go to that website, there's I think 62 artists, all different styles, really great stuff. So it's kind of lots of things to do if you're looking to brighten up your daytime. So today, super excited to talk to my art sister, Karen Taylor, who I first met actually at the very first show I ever did. She was so wonderful and supportive. And we've really been friends ever since. And I've really missed getting together with her and her husband because of obviously COVID. We haven't been able to get together. So looking forward to chatting, and I'm going to bring her right on. So let me find Karen. And there. So I think she's going to be talking from her studio as well. So that'll be cool. And here she comes. Hey, how are you?
Great, how are you doing?
Good, good. Wow, it's been so long since I've seen you. I love your hair.
Thanks. It's one of my own creations.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, my sister said that she basically just took her hair and just like chopped the scissors on both sides. She's like, I was just getting so tired of it.
Well, it was really good this time. I didn't snip anything off my knuckles this time, which is like, when you do the back of your hair, I kept like snipping bits off myself trying to do it. But
why, and you can't get your husband to to do that?
do you know, my husband Dave is a wonderful man. He's very capable in many ways, but he is never coming near my head with a pair of scissors.
You know, you'd be surprised. Well, not scissors, but I was getting like this, the mix of gray and dark and whatever at the top. So I bought one of those really bad Frost and Glow kits, what you use when you're a teenager and you pull all the hair through the cap. Rob's really good at that. It's amazing how your quality of standards get really low.
I'm getting really good at beard topiary. So like they've got this like really big beard, so I'm getting really good at the whole shaping. That's my new hobby.
That's amazing. So I thought we'd basically start right at the beginning, because I first met you when I did my very first show, which was Riverdale Art Walk back I think in 2009. And because they used to do the show in alphabetical order, we were beside each other in pretty much every single show in the city, right?
Because we used to do so many shows in Toronto. I think we were both coming up on 30 each, I think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. Which was great.
Yeah, it was good, but I just never knew where anything was, or, you're promoting one, dropping off for another one, applying for one. It's just, it was chaos. Absolute
I know.
Chaos.
Yeah, wouldn't you kind of just like love a little bit of that chaos now? Or maybe not, but I would.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I know, it's funny because we're all kind of hoping that maybe, I think you're doing Cabbage Town as well, Cabbage Town, and some of the shows in summer probably won't happen, but maybe September. And I'm already getting a little bit stressed about like, I'm not even sure I remember how to do this anymore.
Yeah, and there's all other sorts of things, like I have to get like back of my head sorted out because people are going to be able to see that. So.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I have to wear something other than paint clothes.
I know, does anything else fit?
Yeah, let's not even go there. So I just, my memory too of that first show was, and I think what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is really community. We'll talk about your art and stuff because I see your amazing piece behind you and I love the colors. But at that first show too, like, you know, I was really totally winging it. I'd never even been to an art show, never participated. When I applied, I only had 7 paintings for the application and I needed 7 paintings. So when I got in, I was terrified. And you were so supportive and so helpful, and you probably don't even remember because you just do it naturally anyway. But I just remember, yeah, I just remember at the end of that first day, it's like, oh, thank God I was beside Karen.
I remember my first show. It's exactly the same. The Riverdale Art Walk was my first, 2007. So that was I'd only been doing it professionally for 2 years. Before that, I was a jeweler, so I'd done a whole bunch of jewellery shows. But doing art was different. It feels more personal than doing a craft. I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. I did a year as a London stall holder with my jewellery because those were the only places you could really, you know, show in London that you could easily get a spot. So I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. I walk into my first raw and it's like, oh, this is more personal. This is really hard. I wasn't expecting this at all. So yeah, I'd been through that for about 2 years when you turned up as my neighbour. So it was like, oh, come over here.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, and I think that the other thing that I had totally not anticipated, but has been so powerful in building my career as well, is actually the whole community that you meet within these art show shows, the Artists Network, you know, even the ones I do, Redwood Media shows in the US, and you have this group of artists that are really supportive. And I think it's, you know, having come from an advertising industry, which is very competitive, it took me a while to kind of go, yeah, this is supportive and this is great. And people truly are trying to help other people succeed. And I think it's such a wonderful community to be in. But I think it also allows you to take risks because you know you have some, you know, kind of a safety net, I guess.
Yeah, you need someone you can ask those really awkward questions of. You're scared to ask anyone else. But I mean, what we do is we sit in a cupboard and paint. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We colleagues in the same way, especially if you like working in a private studio or like, you know, at home. You just don't have people around you. You don't have colleagues. I mean, I came from like a business background where I had people around me. And before that, I was a scientist. So, you know, you're in a lab, you have colleagues, you have people to bounce stuff off of. So, yeah, I think it's very important to find your tribe.
Yes,
You know,
that's a good phrase. Yeah.
guy, you know, which I think picked up a few people along the way.
Yeah. And so maybe you can talk about your beginning, how you got started, because obviously, as you just sort of touched on, you started off obviously not in Canada, although it's hilarious that people used to ask us if we were sisters when you obviously have a Scottish accent and I don't. And then kind of went through the world of science and ended up in jewelry and then into art, like such an incredible journey.
I'd always wanted to be an artist, but it's harder in Britain. It's harder. Like if you think about here where you have the upscale Yorkville galleries with no prices or anything, and they're very exclusive. And that's kind of the scene in Britain when I was looking to pick a career. That was it. There was no art in cafes, no outdoor shows. I think that's changing now. But back then there was really nothing, and it was almost impossible to get into art school because the pricing structure was deregulated. So they could bring in foreign students for 10 times the price, you know, and there was no limit to how many of those you could bring in. So as local people couldn't. It was really difficult to get in. And also, I thought I knew better than my art teacher what should go in my portfolio, because apparently you can give me good advice and I'll really take it, you know?
Yeah, well, that's all of us. You have to be a bit delusional to be an artist, I think.
18 years old. So yeah, I didn't get in. So I thought, okay, I'll be a scientist because that's my other calling. So I did that for years, and it was always in the back of my mind to do it. Moved to Canada 2004 and realized that every cafe has an artist in it. Every, you know, square has an art show. You can just pick up and be an artist. You know, it's really easy here. Because even I remember no one had art on their walls in Britain. Everyone had posters, they prints, because there was nowhere to really buy art. There was no real art community like there is here.
So it
So I
was
thought,
sort of,
okay,
it sounds like it was sort of elitist. Like, if you had art on your walls, it's because you were wealthy and you could afford something super expensive as opposed to just supporting a local artist.
yeah, or even you just knew where to go get it. I mean, I had no idea. Um, so yeah, I came to Canada. It's kind of like the Canadian dream here, rather than the American dream. It's like anyone can do anything. It's not about where you studied or what your past history is. It's just what are you doing right now. And I find that Canadians are really receptive to to the idea of going to a park or going to a cafe, seeing something on a wall somewhere, and just buying it because they like it.
Hmm.
It's not an elite. I really like that. Hmm.
And so how did you make that transition then from scientist to artist? Or you just kind of went to school for it and decided it wasn't for you, or?
Um, well, as I said, it's just something I'd always wanted to do. I was working in this big financial company. I was like a project manager. I worked in computing. I worked my way up to a project manager. And I did that for 8 years, and I hated every minute of it. It
Mm.
just wasn't a good fit. Unfortunately, I was good at it, and I could earn. And it's hard to give that up. That's really hard. So I'd been playing around making jewelry. I was playing around as a wire sculptor for a while. And I got sick, I got chronic fatigue, and I was flat on my back for about 2 years, around about the age of 30. And I was on disability, and I just thought, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to this job. As part of the reason I'm sick is because I'm so stressed out doing something I hate. And Dave just said, don't go back. We thought long and hard about what it was we wanted from life. And we thought, well, we've been in Edinburgh, we've been in Scotland for a long time. Maybe let's just go somewhere else and play for a while. We can come back, we can live abroad, we could do anything. So we decided, let's just uproot everything, move to London. I was feeling a bit better by then, so I started making jewellery. I was in Camden Lock Market for a year, every weekend. It was an absolute blast. I never want to do it again because it was so hard. It was really hard work. But, I met so many interesting people. It was really, really great. And I feel like that was a step towards becoming self-employed, becoming a craftsman artist. And the art thing just kind of came on from there when I found somewhere I could show my work. When I moved to Toronto, after 5 years in London, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. I didn't really question it or think too hard about it. I just applied for the Riverdale Art Walk. I got accepted, and that was it.
That's a great story. And it's interesting because my guest next week is a Canadian artist who's transplanted to the UK. So it'll be quite interesting to kind of hear her opposite story from you.
I
So,
was really interested to hear about what the art scene's like because that was decades ago.
mhm.
I was a long time ago. So yeah, I'd feel really interested to hear it's changed because I know it has changed.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Things are good to transfer. We had a couple questions asking if we were sisters, and no, we're not biological sisters. We kind of say we're art sisters because we are involved in so many different things. And people still get us confused, not as much as when we were doing a lot of shows together, and I would get calls or emails like, I love this painting, I want to buy it. I'm like, that's great, but it's not mine, it's Karen's, so scoot you off to her website.
Someone come up to me at a show and go, oh yeah, I really, there's a painting you had, and we'd be talking about it. This isn't ringing a bell. You look familiar, but this isn't ringing. I go, Kate.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah. Hey, your sound is kind of going in and out, so I'm not sure.
So is you.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's might just be my crappy Wi-Fi then. Probably is. Okay.
You're at the
Cool.
cottage, aren't you?
Yeah. Okay, so, and then one of the other things that happened, just kind of working a little bit in chronology, is that you were also the kind of the founder of Colourshift and SolidColour. So SolidColour was an abstract art collective that myself and Lisa are now involved in. And then Colourshift was much larger. Do you want to talk about maybe your kind of inspiration and why you chose to do that and what the thought was?
Again, I moved here 2004. started applying for shows 2006. I'd met some people through being a craftsperson, because I was doing things like one of a kind with jewellery. So, you know, but you're still trying to build like friendships with people. You're still trying to meet people, because you know, you come here with nothing. You know, you don't know anyone. And being an artist, it's like, I really don't know anyone. I don't know how to be an artist professionally. I didn't go to art school, so I don't know, you know, just how you go about shows. How, yeah, I don't have any backup. I have no support system here. So I joined the Artists Network, and that like helped me. That set me up for doing shows. There's like, a lot of great help there. And it's a great place to go if you're starting out as an artist. It's got a lot of really good resources. But I realised that there weren't a lot of abstract artists out there, and I didn't know if that's just because I was new to the country and didn't know them, or there weren't. A lot of the calls at that time would actually say on them, "No abstract, please." I thought,
really?
so I'm not someone who's going to complain. Well, I do complain. Okay. I like a good moan about stuff, but I'm not going to sit back and complain. I'm going to go, what can I do? I know. I'll start up an art group. And also, it was around about the time of, I don't know if you remember the DK group.
Mm-hmm.
Ro here and a bunch of other artists, they were photographers, and they would go into abandoned buildings and take photographs, and show them. And they were showing a lot around the time at the time. And I remember, I think I was sitting on the streetcar, and there were two people in front of me, and they were talking about a photographer, and I didn't recognise the name. And one of them turned to the other and said, "Oh, you know, he's with that DK group." I was like, "Oh, Brandon, I don't know who this artist is. I don't know what the photographs look like specifically. I know exactly what they do." And I've been to one of their shows, and it's really friendly. It's a nice atmosphere. It was, yeah, I'm interested, right? Okay. And I thought, well, I want some of that. I'll start my own group. Yeah, it was basically just, I thought I'd start up a small one, just abstract artists. We can put on our own shows, we can rent spaces. If we can't find somewhere to show our work, let's make them. Let's make a space. And there'd always been a view to maybe making it a little larger, more of a multimedia group. I wanted to bring in like photographers and caustic and oil and all sorts of different things. But I realised that our little group was working so well that what I really needed to do, if I was going to do that, was get a second group, a much bigger group, a wider variety of disciplines, and we can get bigger spaces if there's more of us. So I kind of like the idea of a little tight group, SolidColour, and this bigger group that eventually evolved into.
Yeah, and people who kind of would follow, well, both of us would know that both of us and Lisa Hickey are in SolidColour, and we used to, for 5 or 6 years, did 2 shows a year at the Witchwood Barnes Community Gallery there, which was so much fun. I mean, it was fun for us to do because we goof around and drink coffee and eat all of your amazing homemade baked goods and paint and talk to people, which I really miss, and hopefully we can do that again once kind of things open up. And it's interesting to me too, like, because Colourshift originally was about 12 members, I think, at the height. Yeah. Including people, you know, like Laurie Scantos and Solomon Kami, and it's just interesting to see kind of where they go and how they've changed their careers and moved away, sort of.
Yeah, I'm in touch with all of them, most of them, I think, and it's nice to see how their careers are developing. All the sort of Colourshift alumni.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, 11 was a lot. It was a lot of work. Well, that's the thing, because I was doing almost all the shows. We were doing 4 a year at one, like, to begin with.
Yeah, it was a lot. I remember between the shows we were doing with group shows and SolidColour and Colourshift, it's kind of like almost every weekend we were doing a show. Yeah. And I was still working. I still was running my ad agency that time too.
It was, and I think I'm still doing some jewellery work. I'm still doing kind of jewellery for this first initial years. But yeah, I was organising at least 3 a year for 11 people. And then there were all the other ones that that didn't work out. So I'd maybe try and work on maybe like a dozen shows a year, and 3 would pan out. I was just so much work. And I looked and I realised that everyone at the show was talking about all the stuff they were they were going to be doing their new work, the gallery that they'd gotten interested, and I realized I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing this. So I think after like 3 or 4 years, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna step back a little bit. I think it was a smaller group and it was a bit more easy to handle.
Well, and I think that can be a challenge too, because I mean, truly it is like herding cats to try and get our artists to kind of do the same thing, especially because a lot of them haven't come up through that corporate training where you kind of have a bit of an understanding of, okay, there's a flow chart, there's a business plan, there's a to-do list that has to be done. So I think that's kind of a challenge, and I think that it's you do have to be careful. I was talking to my husband about this morning, like some of these initiatives that you move forward on that are kind of really fun, and you do them for reasons that sometimes feed your soul or feed other things within you, but sometimes they take on a life of their own, and you have to start to kind of think about, okay, so why am I doing this? And is there still the same reasons I had at the beginning, or have I got everything out of that? Like now I've got my friendships, whether or not I show with them or not. Or is there a good revenue opportunity with it that means that I need to move forward, but maybe change the business model a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I got so much out of it. I met so many great people. We showed in some amazing spaces with some really fantastic shows. I learned so much about putting on a show from start to finish.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never going to not have that. That was amazing. And Colourshift is still going. It's a group of 5. I haven't shown in a little while because...
I know. Well, San's off in Bermuda. Or is she Bermuda? Oh, I can never remember.
Yeah. We're international. That's the thing.
That's right, yeah. And Mike Smalley's got his studio he's working through, yeah. And then it's still Karen, Lisa, and I. And Helen, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, 6, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be fun to actually resurrect that. And I think the other thought too is, which I think we were actually just starting to get to that point where we were talking about potentially doing things like Art Basel Miami and stuff, is going down as a collective. So one of the reasons we did all of those shows was to build a show history. So you could kind of say, yes, this hasn't just been put together for an application for this show. It's a collective that's been going for 10 years and going through its iterations, and it's what we're doing. So yeah, it will be interesting to kind of maybe resurrect that when we're able to.
Yeah, I think Laurie, in your interview, she said it's 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to do a bit more in the way of international stuff. But yeah, but that was my focus in those first years, was like build up a resume for us, because a lot of galleries, it was really hard to get a group show in there because you're unknown.
Yeah, and having enough work. Yeah, truly having enough work, though, for a solo show is a huge endeavor, too. So, I mean, sometimes it was nice to be able to, because I was also fairly new in it, so it's nice to be able to go in and share the workload, but also share the sitting at the gallery and share your space with other compatible artists, because the work looked really amazing together. And then also, and everyone's marketing it, and everyone's kind of bringing their collectors in to the table. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to do that.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time documenting everything. Like, so we've got photographs of everything. We've got this database of photographs that everyone can use if they need them. Yeah, I'm always more comfortable behind the camera. So.
Yeah, it's the introvert extrovert thing. And so the other part too about for you kind of moving and building and kind of continuing to build your art practice was the decision to move out of your home into an external studio.
Best thing I ever did. I'm not going to say I should have done it sooner, because everything about this is perfect. The people I share it with, the space, the venue, everything about it is exactly what I would have wanted. So I feel it's worked out well in the end. But my work has changed so much in the 2 years I've been here. It's been amazing. So I could say, I should have done it sooner, but yeah, I did it now and it works.
And so what kind of advice would you give to artists that are just kind of considering moving out of their home into like a shared space?
It's hard because I've been so lucky with this, and it's my only experience of doing this. So I'd say just try it. Yeah. Maybe it won't be perfect first time, but maybe you have to do it maybe once just to see what it is you need from the space as well. Because all studios are different. I mean, everyone I've spoken to about their studio, some people like it because there's lots of interaction. Some people like the studio because there's no interaction.
Yeah, and I think that, because I mean, Yeah, through your conversations too, like, because I had been on the fence as well. We've been talking about it for actually a couple of years, haven't we, about like, when is it time to move out and have an external space? And so you made that move, and it almost just after that, I kind of made the move to do Art Alchemy. And yeah, I think that it is really important to, as an artist, think about what do you want out of that space and how do you want to structure it and what are you looking to get out of it versus the romance of just having the physical space. You know, do you want to share with somebody else or do you not? If you want to share with someone else, what are you looking for in terms of, like, for me, it was totally the social interaction. Not so much so that it becomes, gets in the way of doing the work, but, it was nice for me to be able to say, have somebody in the studio who painted, sort of similarly, where I could kind of, like Lisa Hickey's in the studio, to kind of say, well, what do you think? I'm stuck on this painting. It needs to go somewhere else, or is it working, or those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I got it completely wrong about what I wanted. I always wanted a studio, but I always thought it would be just me. I'm socially awkward enough as it is. I don't, the idea of, like, being around other people with art, and, I'd feel really self-conscious. I thought, oh no, I really need a little room I can hide away in and paint. And I liked it a whole bunch, but it just I never found one that I liked. And then Rob and Jessica were moving, and I said, okay, deep breath. If you move to the east side, let me know. I'll be interested. And I moved in, and I was terrified of moving in. We laugh about this now, but I was terrified about moving. I'd never really shared a space and painted with other people, apart from our demos at Witchwood Barns.
But that's fun stuff anyway. It's not really serious.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, what if we don't get on? Because we're friends, but I thought, you start working with friends, it can be awkward. I thought, oh, God, is this going to work out? I really hope it does. It's a great space. And it's what I needed. I needed to be around people and paint. I didn't realize that. Like, Rob and I are here sort of 9 to 5 every day, normally, in normal times. And we talk constantly about what it is we do. And Jessica comes in now and again because she's on a different schedule, because she's out shooting photographs and then editing them. And then she'll come in. So she won't do the 9 to 5. She'll work like all through the day into the night, and she'll do that for bursts. And then we'll see her again for a couple of weeks. So it's very different. It's great when all three of us are in at the same time. It's really amazing. But normally it's just me and Rob. And I didn't think I'd want to talk about my work. I hate doing that. Like, why am I doing this? What am I thinking about? I hate doing that. I really do. I really clam up when I'm doing that. But it's so natural in here, because there's just a little back and forth that one of us will be stuck and be like, well, what is it you were trying to do? And we ask each other questions. And it's been amazing. It really has been a huge change to, my work. It's been really, really, yeah.
Well, but obviously too, I think that you're right. And there's a difference between, I get along really well with this person when I go and see them at an art show or at the Artist Project, and I talk to them for 20 minutes, versus really bringing them into your personal space, right? Which is what happens when you share a studio, right? And I'm sure it takes a while for that trust level to build too, where you kind of feel that you can be vulnerable and know that that they understand, and that there's going to be the ability to have a really deep conversation about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, Art Alchemy normally has 6 artists, so it's a bit bigger because the space that we found. I was also really struggling with trying to find a space that was not going to be downtown, because I don't live downtown, and I knew that it's like, am I going to get in the car on a winter day and drive a half an hour to 40 minutes to go to the studio? No, I'm not. I'm going to work at home, right? So I had to have something close, which meant that it was, unfortunately, kind of an expensive area of town. But it's been great for us too. And I love the fact of being able to host our own shows like the Pie Art Squared, and do openings. Well, obviously not now, but normally, to do openings and to kind of really, we share what work we're doing, or kind of how we're moving the work forward, and also just different shows and things like that are happening, which is really great. And right now, because of COVID, of course, it's very, very restricted. So I miss going in. Now, I don't know if I lost Karen or if she lost me. Probably my Wi-Fi connection is terrible. So, yeah. Sorry, I lost you for a bit there. Yeah, but I was just saying, I really miss that camaraderie. And I mean, this cottage studio is amazing. It's beautifully inspiring. It's great to be here. But you do miss that bouncing back and forth with different artists.
Yeah, I don't think I could go back now. I don't think I could go back to working from home full time. Because
Yeah.
I'm at a couple of days a week now. I'm only in here 3 days a week, but it, 3 days that's good. It makes a big difference. Because of course now everything's online. All the shows are online. I need 2 days a week at home just to do all the admin and keep on top of everything.
I know. That takes forever, huh? Okay, so you were talking about how being in the studio has really changed your work, and I know you
Yeah.
work in a number of different collections with the birch trees and the bold type and reflections, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're doing behind you because it's so dynamic and exciting.
This one is it's brand new collection, brand new series called Bold Type. I've had a fascination with fonts for as long as I can remember, and I've been wanting to do a series to do with fonts since I went professional in 2006. So, but it's just never worked. It's always looked a little cheesy or kind of font bolted on, and I could never really work it out. And then this summer, it just happened. It just all I could see it. I could see it in my head. And I put the first one down on canvas, thinking, these it's going to take me a couple of goes to get this right, and it was like it worked straight away. Um, so yeah, quite happy with this one. Yeah, because I grew up in Glasgow, and we have our own font in Glasgow.
Really?
From early age, so always aware that fonts can be different and that you can do things with them. You can be playful with them. You can use them to set tone. Because I come from the same town as Charles Rennie Mackintosh, the artist, architect, designer. I don't know if he's big over here, but he was a huge influence on Frank Lloyd Wright, massive influence. Um, he is to Glasgow what Gaudi is to Barcelona, but he has this typeface. Um, and you'll see it online. It usually goes by the name of Mackintosh or Glasgow or Willow, which is comes from one of the buildings he designed. And it's a sort of Art Nouveau font. Lots of different variations on it, but they're all pretty similar. So I've just always been interested in it, and as I said, in the summer this started coming together.
And is that the
And this,
Glaswegian font?
no, it's not. It's a mixture of different ones. This one is actually, I'll swing it round so you can see. I can clamp myself. Let's see, how do I switch? Is there a button here where I can switch?
Yep, there should be one at the bottom where it's got the switchy thing, the two arrows.
Nope. Oh, there it is, right in the middle. Oh, there it is. So this one
Look
is
at
called,
that.
I know, it's the first 48 by 48 that I've painted in a long time, because it used to be my go-to size when I was doing, it was like a water reflection series. I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
that one.
totally
Splashing on.
remember. And they were always huge.
Yeah, so I've been painting a lot smaller because I've been working on different series, but yeah, this is my first one in a while. And it's based on a lyric from a Bowie song, Rebel Rebel. We like dancing and we look divine. It's my favorite lyric from being a tiny little thing. I used to sit in my sister's bedroom and we listened to records. I don't think she really wanted me to be there because I'm 8 years younger and I'm like the annoying little sister. But yeah, so I sit and listen to records. And this is one of my favorites. So.
And I love the colors, I have to say. Like they're just so vibrant without being kind of chaotic or overwhelming. Like you've just got such a beautiful balance between the chartreuse greens and the cadmium yellows and the oranges and the pink, hot pinks. It's just gorgeous.
Well, it's from sort of glam era 70s British music, so I kind of wanted to get a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
That's cool. And so how did that series come from the birch trees? Like the birch trees, I know you use photo transfers. Are you using transfers on this as well, or stenciling,
no,
or?
this is just straight painting. They're
Wow.
all they're all just straight acrylic on canvas. Yeah.
They're really great. I love them. Oh, I love your ampersand.
Yeah, I really like that one. Actually, I did as a series, so there's three of them. There's a green one and a purple one as well. 70s
Yeah.
colors. I want a real kick of 70s color. I'm not entirely sure where that's come from because it's not my favorite color scheme, but
Yeah,
there's
it's
some
funny. That's why I was surprised to see it, because normally your colors are a little bit more earthy than my color palette. And yet that one was like, oh, that's my color palette. That's so juicy.
well, so I've been painting trees now for a couple of years. There's a lot of green,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I'm itching to do some stuff with some other colors. So now suddenly everything's pink and peach and yellow. Yeah.
That's great. And so are you working on both collections at the same time, like the bold font and the birch trees?
Yeah, I find that a series for me will it's got a lifespan of maybe about 4 or 5 years where I get to the point where I've kind of done everything I can with it. But the overlap, I like to have two different things going at once. I would
Yeah.
normally do that.
It's interesting, though, to see how one informs the other. And I guess today is World Art Day. So happy World Art Day, Karen. I didn't know that till I read it in something this morning. So I kind of, for my World Art Day Instagram post, I kind of went back through all the pieces I had, starting right back from 2009. And when you kind of see them all together like that, you really start to see, oh yeah, there's pieces I was doing in 2010 that are informing my Unity series. And there's things I was doing, 5 years, 7 years ago that are kind of informing this new series. And even though you kind of somehow think it's brand new that you've never done before, you kind of realize you've been working towards it for years. It's kind of interesting.
Well, what I find with this one is because it's a bit more precise, my birch trees have gotten much more loose, which
Really?
I really I don't know if you noticed that in the two that I submitted to the Pie Art Square show that you had at the
Yeah,
studio,
yeah.
much looser, which I
Hmm.
quite find that if I'm working on two very different series, because the series I work on tend not to be one's an extension of the one before. They tend to be very different because it's like, okay, I'm doing this, but I want to try this other thing. So they're very, very different. And I find that if one's a more precise, tighter thing, it'll make the other one looser and it helps tighten up the other work. So it's nice to have the two different things on my easel at once.
And do you find it hard to get, that must be a completely different mindset. Like, do you find it hard to get into that mindset of one or the other?
I think I find it easy to switch between them, but they are they're very different. It's a very different mindset.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I find it hard. Like when I have to do, or when I'm doing some of my Unity series, which is much more precise. Like you have to be much more straight line and much more controlled, and it's much less kind of just intuitive, erratic, like my other stuff is. I find it takes me a while to get myself into that headspace, and then once I'm in it, I love it, and I tend to do a whack of them, and then I kind of move on to something else. But I can't flip back and forth like that.
I think it's the opposite for me. I almost have to. Um, I did this thing when I went for a job interview for the project manager job I had, and you had to do this test. It was like a logic test, and it wasn't about whether you got the questions right or wrong. It was about your working, which you had to show. And
Hmm.
I talked with my manager afterwards. He said the reason he hired me out of the people who got picked was that I came out as being left and right-brained, which he thought would be really interesting to work with. And I was like, oh, well, that explains a lot. Okay. Um, means is I like to work with big concept things and I like to work with small details. The bit in the middle, yeah, it's fine. But I like both. And it's very rare that you get both in one thing that you're working with or a hobby or what you're working, whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
I tend to like to have both in my life. And I find if I do too much of one, it's like my brain starts to crave something else. I think actually my brain was really craving detail work.
Right. Kind
So
of like if
that's
you eat too much sugar, then you really crave vegetables.
exactly
Well,
this is my shit. Yeah,
that's lovely.
yes, I kind of feel like, oh, I want to do a nice big loose birch tree now.
And so, where are you? Do you have any shows planned that those are going to be available for viewing in real life? Hopefully, finger crossed.
Yeah, let's see, I've got the Artists Network shows coming up, so I'm doing the Raw, but I'm also, which is going to be online, I think, but also in August we're doing the second Riverdale Art Walk, and then there's the Don Mills show in September,
Hmm.
and so I'm going to be I think the earlier shows I'm going to be showing the birch trees because I'm still building up a portfolio of this work. And then as we get into September, it's going to switch more over into showing more of these.
Yeah, that's always hard, isn't it, to kind of transition kind of your collectors and your art lovers from one series to another, especially if you're in an outdoor show. Like, you have to be so careful you don't have just a mishmash of so many different things that people can't really transition or kind of read it.
I do find that because when I moved to another series, I do have them both in tandem, and so I want to be able to show both, but they're always so different. So it does look a bit chaotic in your booth, and it's really hard to make it look like it all fits together.
Yeah.
That can be a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, because I find too, I had one show where I had my Unity on one side and I still had some color field on one side, and I had my energy and motion at the front. And I really liked it because for me, I kind of thought, like, I'm showing all the work that I love. I'm showing the strongest pieces of all those collections. And there's definitely, for me, there's a color palette that runs through them all. But it was probably one of my worst years at the Artist Project in terms of selling. And I think it was because people had a hard time pinning down what is it you're committing to and what is the series that you're actually doing. And so it's kind of an interesting way to transition that.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, the last transition I did was between the water reflections series I did and when I moved into doing the birch trees. And I thought, oh, great idea when I did the Riverdale Art Walk. What I did is I had a big black line along the middle of my I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was the Don Mills show, that's what it was. And I had all the water stuff below the horizon, and I had the trees above the horizon. And I had a little blurb next to each to say, above the horizon, this is, what each series was about. And in my head, it looked like it was great. When I put it all in the tent, it was a hot mess. To hang everything because I wanted to show a ton of stuff from each series. It was way overhung.
Yeah, well, that is so hard, isn't it? It's kind of, wasn't that Coco Chanel? She used to say, "Get yourself dressed and take off 2 pieces of jewelry." I almost feel like I need to apply that sometimes at the art shows because you're so excited about the new work, and you don't want to risk, missing something out. But it's so, you need to pull those pieces back.
Yeah. So ever since that show, I've been a lot more minimal in what I put in a booth. Give a bit more space to things. I think I had to be that terrible before I really learned the lesson.
Yeah, me too, obviously. I guess neither of us really learn by people telling us stuff. You have to just do it and learn from yourself.
Yeah.
And are you still doing jewelry? Or are you kind of giving up the jewelry?
I don't make anymore because arthritic hands. I made a gift for someone just a year or 2 years ago. And it just about crippled my hands, so I'm not able to do it anymore. But I actually have a ton of jewelry left over from like when I finished, because I think when I decided to stop, I didn't do one last show. I decided, sort of in between shows, it's like, no, I'm kind of done. So I still have a lot of stock. So one of the things I'm spending time doing 2 days a week at the moment is getting all that online to be shoppable, because I've never had shoppable websites before because I've always been able to go to shows.
Right. It hasn't. Yeah, that's one thing COVID has certainly done for artists, isn't it? Like, it's forced us to look for that, other source of revenue by putting things online.
And it's not been a bad thing, but it's a lot of work.
I know.
Because I've redesigned my whole art website, but then I've gone back and I've said, okay, right, I need to do something about all this jewelry I've had sitting around for the last decade that I've not done anything about. Maybe it's time.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to get everything online has been a momentous task, but a good one, a worthwhile one, and it's one I get to keep the benefits of going forward.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a weird question for you then, because when I was doing the obviously when I do these talking to artists, and I do a bit of a bio of the artist, but you have no bio on your website. You've got no information about you at all or your inspiration. Was that intentional? Like, were you looking to do a different way of talking to your collectors about your work, or?
I think there might be one in there, but it's not. Well, okay, when I read site, not all the bits from the old website went onto the new one. So there is one lurking around. It's just not actually been floating free somewhere. It's not been attached to the website. So I'll need to remedy it.
Okay. I had to take it from your LinkedIn profile just to let you know.
But I spent a lot of time when I was doing it, because the way I grouped things, I wanted to group them in a way that I could have some blurb about each little series within what I'm doing, that talks about what the inspiration was, the story behind, the paintings, because I'm not there to talk to people when they see it anymore, But yeah, the actual overarching blurb about who I am.
Well, no, the only reason I ask is because I'm in the middle of revamping my website too, because I realized, I put it together, 10, 12 years ago, and fundamentally the homepage and the bio hasn't really changed in terms of what the messaging is. I mean, the artist statement changes, but not dramatically. And so I was sort of doing all this reading about how to kind of really energize your homepage. And so that's why I was asking the questions. I thought, well, maybe that's kind of just what people are doing now, where it's kind of like let the work stand on its own. But
women of mystery.
Exactly. You want to find out about me, you got to come to my show.
Yeah, it's just an on my part.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot anymore. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
When the thing when you've been doing this for a long time, you've had a website for a long time, you almost don't notice how clunky it gets. You just keep bolting bits on it. It becomes like Frankenstein's website, where it's like just keep adding bits, and it's got bits from different eras that have been shoehorned in. And to actually take it and say, let's start from scratch again. What do I want it to look like? And that's the first time I think I've truly done that, properly sat down and thought, okay, what do I need this to do? Because it now has to do a different job. It's not just to show you have to, but it's like, okay, this is maybe the only place you can come and actually see my work now and buy it.
But I think it used to be truly kind of brochureware. I mean, the reality is it was brochureware, people read it and they don't really engage, whereas now it becomes much more engaging. And I even had, because I'm in the process of reworking my website, and I really need to kind of just step back and say I'm going to take 2 weeks and write the whole thing and map it all out, which I haven't done. But one of the things I did do is I added a video about my process, because that was recommended to do. And when I was talking to just yesterday, she was looking at doing a commission, and she said she showed her husband the video, and for him that made him comfortable to move forward to do the commission. So you're like, well, I guess it does work. I guess I need to do more of that, because people engage differently now with a website than they used to, right?
Mm. Yeah, and also there's not everyone goes to websites. A lot of people just want to see what you're doing on Instagram.
Yeah. Which of course is the other part, right? You manage your Instagram and your Facebook and your Pinterest and your Twitter and your, LinkedIn and your website. It's like, oh my God, I need an assistant.
Yeah, a dozen different places where you can see me, and use them all slightly differently. So Instagram is where it's more immediate. This is a picture of what's happening right now in the studio. Here's a video of how it's happening. Whereas the website's got so much information on it already. I feel that, how much more can I add to the website?
Yeah.
It's too much for
overwhelming.
When you log in. Yeah.
Yeah, truly. So believe it or not, because you were afraid we weren't going to have enough to talk about, we're actually right up the end of our interview time, as I thought. So I always end my interviews. Yeah. I always like to end my interviews with, if money and time were no option, what would your big hairy ass goal be?
It's funny because that's a harder one to answer now, because for my whole professional career, I've had this dream of having this fancy studio that I'd love to come to and be creative, a space I could be really creative in. And I have that, and I actually, it's hard to answer that one, but honestly, if I could really have anything right now, it would be a personal assistant, someone who would do all my online stuff, who would stretch my canvases and prime things, and yeah, I would have someone who just did everything so that I could sit here and make me tea, so I could sit here and drink tea.
Of course. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I know we're even thinking within Art Alchemy, there's probably enough between 6 artists that you could keep an assistant going and busy. Well, I know I could probably keep somebody busy almost full time, but yeah, I think you're right. That's the next step. Yeah, me too. Of course, not during COVID, but I know I keep saying to my husband, retire faster, but that's not going to happen.
Your husband's great, stretching canvases and, doing a lot of he all the shipping containers and stuff, doesn't he? The packaging.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, and he's actually doing the podcast now, so kind of cleaning the audio and stuff like that to be able to get it into podcast form. But it's hard for him to do when he's still working full time, right? So.
Well, when he finally retires, are you thinking about maybe renting him out part time to artists?
I'll think about that.
One day a week. That would be.
Yeah. Well, it has been so fabulous to talk to you, and awesome. I love your new series. And say hi to Rob and Jessica for me because I haven't seen them in ages either. Okay, and enjoy your day. Thanks so much.
Great to see you.
It's good to see you too. Okay, bye. So that was lovely. I don't know. I guess you're going to have to execute yourself because I can't seem to figure out how to get rid of Karen. But bye. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Oh, cool. So that was great. I really it was wonderful to talk to Karen. I haven't seen her for so long, and we used to get together quite regularly. So I really miss her and her husband, Dave. So just moving forward, next week we've got Olga, who is a Canadian who's now living in the UK. So looking forward to chatting with her. Then we've got Rod Prowse, who is quite an incredible landscape artist. And so I don't know him very well. So that'll be really great to learn more about his process and his work and how it's really dramatically changed. And then we are going to redo the how to do an outdoor show. I really was so appreciative that Angela stepped in last week. But I appreciate it was a little bit chaotic, lots of good information, but a little bit chaotic. So we're going to try and be a bit more structured. And so if you have any questions or anything that you want answered before that, then send it to me, DM me, and I'll make sure that we incorporate that into the session. So one of the reasons I don't typically answer questions while we're doing the interviews is because of the fact that a lot of people listen to these versus watch them. And then when I take them into YouTube, then it becomes a bit distracting. So anyway, send me stuff ahead of time. If you missed this interview or any of the previous ones, it's on my Facebook page. It's also on youtube.com/KateTaylorArt. If you get a chance to go and subscribe, that would be super cool. And I'm in the process of converting them into podcasts. I think I only have 5 right now because they're just taking a long time because the audio is kind of crappy on some of them. And that is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, a bunch of stuff under Talking to Artists. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to chatting with you next week.